This project has kindly sponsored the Fleur Community Lucky Claw Collection by donating assets to the Treasury, generating a monthly prize pool for lucky holders. As with any investment, I highly recommend conducting your own due diligence prior to making any financial decisions. You can find all the relevant links to this project in the description of this video and also a link to the Lucky Claw Collection. With that being said, let's jump in. Right, so today we are joined by the Uppercent team. We've got Jake and Mark. Thank you very much for joining us. And I guess the best place to start is maybe giving us a bit of an introduction about yourselves and what you're doing at Uppercent.
Sure. Thank you for having us, John. It's great to be able to be on this podcast and talk a little bit more about Uppercent. So personally, I've been in e-learning for probably around 6 years now. Started out by deferring my place at university to pursue a business. That one didn't quite work out, unfortunately, but I kept going and actually led to more of a transition away from content e-learning into edtech, education technology. Built a platform in edtech that is a little bit more successful, and then kind of cleaned the slate and decided to work on the next venture. And by doing that, combining the two passions that I have, which is edtech and education as a whole, and this emerging passion I've had for the last few years, which is Web3. So that's probably the best background I can give you on myself. I feel like I've been in the industry, a little while now, being able to spot some good opportunities, and we're hoping to, move the industry forward with new technology. So, over to you, Mark.
I guess I've been, although I have a background in film, music, and also computer science, for the last 22 years, I've been in the kind of high-end education industry, but kind of more traditional, I guess, but also in lots of other areas. I have started a few tech companies. I've been on the board of a few tech companies as well. I recently had a successful exit with one of my education technology companies, and I kind of just sort of working out what to do next. I've been interested in blockchain actually since 2012 was when I bought my first Bitcoin. Wow. which was like via bank transfer to a guy that I didn't know, and luckily it turned up in my wallet. He helped me create. But I've sort of been into this world for quite a while, and then I met Jake actually and his brother, and I get pitched ideas all the time. I hear new kind of ideas for startups, maybe, 40 or 50 a week I kind of hear, and they're nice. And then occasionally I hear something that I think, whoa, this is really, really interesting. And so I met Jake, and he said, actually, do you know what? I think your skills could be useful. And I guess there's a big overlap of the film stuff, the education stuff with the computer science stuff. So we kind of joined forces, and I guess this is Uppercent.
Well, it sounds like an absolutely incredible duo at the helm of Uppercent, let's say. So, I guess the main thing, or like something which I think would be great for the audience to hear, is like an elevator pitch of Uppercent. What is it, in just a couple of minutes?
Essentially, it's a high-end e-learning community, essentially, right, where people kind of learn from the best. So there's this sort of expression that Jake uses quite a lot: in order to be the best, you should learn from the best. And I really do agree with that. So essentially, that we take the kind of the people who are the best in their field. And it's not just people who are kind of reach the top, it's the people who are actually doing. So it's people who are well respected, they're actually doing really, really well. And also people who have an insight into what it is that they're doing. I know that there are plenty of people who are successful almost by luck and they have no idea what they're doing. So we have this we're building this community where people can learn from each other, but also more importantly, we're providing kind of top end instructors, people that can actually can also teach, and I guess that's also our job as well, is to help these people who are very, very busy because they're actually doing stuff. We take a lot of the work ourselves just on to kind of help them explain things really well, and then provide them the tech resources, because there's a huge amount of available tech nowadays. There's been amazing innovations in the education industry, and our goal is to kind of bring all of that together to essentially create something that's really freaking awesome. For those of us who love learning, it's a learning community that I now realize I'm rabbiting, and I'm sure Jake will improve on mine. But Jake kind of came to me and said this sort of analogy of a book, and I hope you don't mind me handing over to you, Jake, about this the analogy, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, this is the pitch that got Mark. But the way I always look at it is, so I bought this book. This one's actually the Chimp Paradox, amazing book. I bought it to learn about mindset and managing my chimp. The book was probably about £15. I finished it now, so I could send it to Mark if I wanted to. I could sell it. Quite frankly, I can do whatever I want with it because I own it. On the other hand, if I buy an online course, which in most circumstances for a real good quality online course is considerably more expensive, probably around the 500 mark as an average, I take the course and I finish it. What can I do? I can't do anything with it. Why? Because, there's no proof that I digitally own anything in relation to that course. As we all know, NFTs allow us to, digitally own things on record. So for us, it's about when a new course is created, rather than just saying, oh, you can buy this course and, pay for your access and end of story. We want to be able to say, right, we've got this course, we've created 500 access passes for it, as an example, which are technically NFTs. 500 people own those access passes. Once they're finished with the course, they can sell the access pass on the Uppercent marketplace to someone else that hasn't, had the opportunity to take the course yet. So in turn, what this does is creates a secondary market for e-learning. And if you look at the secondhand book market, over 24 billion revenue a year. If you look at the secondhand, e-learning market, well, there isn't one yet. So in terms of a tech standpoint, which I'm sure a lot of people watching this podcast would be interested in, that's the angle. And if I was going to more go on Mark's side, he was the points he was pushing across. Uppercent is it's not just about any old online course. It's about using this technology specifically for high-end courses that create an immersive experience that are being taught by the top of the top. And I always look at it as teaching high-value skills. So yeah, it's kind of a combination between the tech and the education, which is the real product. And a credit to Mark, because before we kind of merged together, I was maybe too focused on the tech, and Mark came in and said, well, hang on a minute, education really is the core product here, not the tech. So let's really focus on that. So yeah, that's how
Yeah, definitely. So I guess it's sort of a way that people can get access to these really high quality educational tools, but then also have the ability to resell them, so they can benefit from the knowledge and they're not just lumped with that knowledge with nothing to do. So I do think that's a very novel concept, actually, even in the blockchain space in general. Haven't really seen much of this before, so it is quite interesting to me, at least. So I guess the next question would be, what sort of brings you to, or I guess which networks are you actually planning to bring Uppercent to?
Sure. So I think it's not much of a secret, hence why we're on this podcast, that we're bringing Uppercent firstly to Flare Network. I think there's many reasons as to why we want to build Uppercent on Flare. More than happy to go through those, actually. So yeah, I suppose the answer directly to your question is Flare to start with. That's our core focus. We really want to try and build something special for the Flare community, and kind of going into the reasons as to why we're choosing to build on Flare as opposed to all of the other networks that are out there. I'd say firstly, the Flare team have shown a real passion and focus on trying to bridge Web 2 to Web 3 and education, like you just mentioned, John. Right? There's a lack of education startups or people doing things in relation to education and Web 3. So education is still very much stuck in Web 2, and the Flare team really did show a passion and focus for being able to bridge that gap between Web 2 and Web 3, which fits perfectly with what we're trying to do. Probably the second reason for us is the interoperability that Flare's State Connector will provide. The fact that we receive data from other blockchains opens us up to further opportunities, and the internet as well. So that's great. And I think another factor, Flare did a demonstration, was it last week maybe, on how someone can purchase an NFT on Flare from XRP or with Dogecoin. And that opens up a plethora of opportunities as well, where you could purchase an access pass from through Uppercent, but from a different chain. So there's a lot of kind of unique points that Flare have in regards to the interoperability and State Connector. And if I was going to mention probably one more point, having the EVM core will allow us to build scalable smart contracts, which essentially are the creation of our access passes for Uppercent courses. So that's a really, really core reasoning for choosing Flare as well. So, and finally, as well as the Flare team, the community is amazing. What we've seen already, so much support from the Flare community. So yeah, we feel like we're building a product for people that actually want the product and want to watch us succeed. And the blockchain space isn't always quite that friendly, as some of us watching this might be aware. So having like this support from the Flare community, knowing that we're building a product for a community that deserve it, I suppose is a good way to put it, is another inspiration behind wanting to build on Flare.
Yeah, and I mean,
sorry, I know you were just about to say, John, sorry. I just want to really reiterate that the bit, obviously, when we were talking about it and looking at how we were going to get this running, the thing that really is I think for me, I mean, obviously in education as well, it's so important, is the community. Just to kind of, I know Jake's already said it, but really it is the thing that is so exciting about the Flare community. These people, they're not just like users, they're fans, they're people who really, really care about it. And I think you've obviously talked about the technical reasons of why it's awesome, but it's also this level of kind of, I don't know, like people who really, really care about this. And I think that's probably the most exciting part of it, because the hope being that we're with any startup I've ever been involved in, it's the bit that's most exciting is where you're molding this thing. It's kind of almost like your baby and you're helping it kind of grow up, and to have the support of a ton of other people who have opinions, who genuinely, not just like, oh, well, I think you could do this. And people who really, really passionately engage with it. That's really exciting. And I think that helps us make it even better. Sorry to jump in on that, but I think that's the bit that on a personal level for me was the most exciting part of this whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. The Flare community are a passionate bunch, like you say. And it makes sense to launch on Flare because, like you said, you have this breadth of exposure to different networks where people from other chains can actually have the opportunity to buy your courses. They're not necessarily locked into the network that you deploy on, right? So the idea of having this Uppercent, the upper echelon of tutors and stuff to create the content. So how can people verify the people that are creating these courses or, giving these courses? How can they verify their achievements or their successes? What makes them part of the Uppercent?
Yeah, great question. So let's define Uppercent to start with, right? So Uppercent basically means like the upper percent of top achievers, similar to someone would refer to like the top 1% of achievers. So the people that we're working with hopefully will be recognizable for some people. And obviously as the business grows, the project grows is probably the right word to say. Hopefully we start working with bigger and bigger and bigger people. So that are familiar. And I think that's one thing where from the outside people can look at and generally see, the sort of creators we're working with and their profiles and what they've done online, quite simply because they have a big profile. So I think from our side, there's really two aspects. Obviously, we want to look for people that are at the top in their field and are already inspiring thousands of people and have this kind of public success that everyone can see and understand. But the second thing for us is actually checking whether they really know their stuff because they're teaching here. So say, for example, we sat down with someone huge like Elon Musk, right? I very much doubt this would be the case, right? But just say that out of the blue, we sit down with Elon Musk and he can't really answer any questions about what it is that he does and so on. Then he's not going to make the best instructor because you need an element of being able to share your knowledge in a way that's understandable for the public. So that also will give us some sort of insight as to whether they really know their stuff, and and whether their position that everyone in the public can see is actually backed up by what they know. So there's really those two aspects. But from our side, when we launch a course, which I'm sure we'll get into later on, someone can learn about the educator. They can watch their trailer and learn about the course and what it's going to entail. They can read a whole page about the modules and the contents of that course, the learning objectives, and so on. So from our side, it's using mainly Mark's educational experience. The guy's got decades of experience in education to really work out the best course to put out there, and secondly, whether the creator has the ability to deliver the course that needs to be delivered. So I'd say they're probably my main points. Mark, do you have any to add there?
Yeah, no, I think I'll jump on the back of what you were saying about making sure that they could educate. So my role in Uppercent is Chief Learning Officer. Is the buck kind of stops with me in working out whether this is actually going to be a kind of a course that people are actually going to learn from. And of course, we'll all work together on that, and I guess that's the beauty of, again, having this massive community. But yeah, the first people we're working with, again, as Jake was saying, quite a lot of the people we're working with right now have millions of followers and things like that. But again, they do know their stuff. They clearly know their stuff. But I guess that's something I sort of touched on at the beginning, is do they know how to explain it? And I remember, I think it was, I hope I don't misattribute this to, I think it was like Einstein said that you don't really understand something unless you can explain it to a 10-year-old, right? There is a sort of an element to, now whether it was Einstein or not, but the point is that being able to explain stuff well is a skill in itself. I've been responsible for training of thousands of educators, like tutors and teachers and people like that, through various courses and things. You can train people to get better at teaching, but also there are some people who are just naturally kind of able to do that. And I think the low-hanging fruit for us would be finding people who are really successful, who aren't just kind of like, weren't just successful 10 years ago or 15, 20 years ago and just now trying to capitalize on that. These are people who are actually doing this stuff. The problem with picking people like that is they're really, really busy. So our job is to kind of actually not only make it easier for them to do that, but also deliver it in a way that kind of makes sense. So there is this sort of, I guess, this responsibility that we have to make sure that people turn around at the end and go, that was a really cool course. I learned a lot. And if I'm really honest with you, most of the time what we're doing is we're actually looking at the courses and the people and talking to people going, that sounds cool. I want to learn that. And like, I'm a lifelong learner, right? I love learning. Like, it's something that it's in my bones and I will always do it. I think meeting Jake is a similar sort of, he's constantly, I think if we had an ideal sort of user, it might be Jake, because you're constantly doing these kind of courses and love that kind of thing. And there is a community of people who do that. So yeah, as I said, the real goal is to make stuff that actually is just really cool and we really, really learn from.
Yeah, I think that's a really good a really important point to make as well. It's great having all of the information in your head, but if you're not able to convey it in a way that's easily digestible, then it's just going to be hieroglyphics to some people. So
it's tough though. That's a skill in itself. It really is. It's someone said to me ages ago. I think I was writing a book years ago, and he said, it was a really good friend of mine said to me, he was like, just because you know it, don't assume everyone else does. And I think that is that's the core of teaching, right? But I guess that's our job is to there'll be some people who are naturally great at it, and that's fantastic. But I think it's those other really interesting people who might just need a little bit of help from us to get that stuff out. And so I guess that's really our kind of responsibility. And then, yeah. But yeah, we, to go back to the beginning point of how do we verify them? Well, I think they'll be pretty obvious that they're good at what they're doing, not just from the numbers of followers, but also what they're doing. And I think really, yeah, we're looking at it and going, is this good for us?
You're definitely trying so hard not to give any creators away.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, but the problem with me is I just share everything, right? And so, but Jake has given me these like little things. I go, don't mention this. I'm like, yeah. Yet we will. All of this stuff's going to come out, and I can't wait. That's the bit I'm super excited is to tell people and share some of the stuff that we're doing. In fact, I'm actually in the edit at the moment. There's an empty chair there.
Is there any hints going on in that screen? No. You're obviously
poke the dragon.
Sorry, Jake.
Sorry. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so obviously you might not be able to reveal any of the identities now, but
Yeah.
could you reveal maybe some of the subjects that are going to be taught? Like, is it going to be quite diverse, or is it going to be specialized in a particular sector?
Yeah, so I mean, primarily it's going to be vocational skills, things that we sort of feel are high value,
Yeah.
things that you probably wouldn't learn in school, I guess. Obviously, I come from the traditional education industry and worked at kind of the very, very top of that for quite a long time. But no, it's the stuff that I guess I wish was in the education system right now. The stuff that's actually really useful, that can really change people's lives. So things like e-commerce, that kind of thing. I mean, the goal will be that we have a really broad range of skills that we can kind of get to. But I think to start with, it's going to be stuff that's related to e-commerce, to business, but things like sort of other stuff, as I say, that stuff that's not taught in school, things like empathy, other kind of what they call soft skills, but are really, really vital. I think that the thing I was talking to a friend about the other day is that Henry Ford and Thomas Edison were members of a mastermind group. So
Yeah.
obviously Thomas Edison, light bulb, and Henry Ford, cars. But they were members of this mastermind group, essentially, which was a group of kind of entrepreneurs and business people, but they were from a really wide set of skills, and they would sort of help each other out. But just by sitting down with each other and having conversations, they were able to sort of look at problems in a way that they wouldn't normally have kind of approached, in a way that they might not normally have approached them. So I have a group of friends who are, some of them are very high achieving from very high up in the banking industry, but some are tech entrepreneurs. But we've also got musicians and filmmakers and things like that and stuff. And I feel very fortunate to be part of this group, because sometimes when I'm approaching a new startup idea or something like that, we bounce an idea. And if a friend of mine who's an actor, says, oh, actually, I was thinking about this thing the other day, and provide a completely different perspective on the problem that I'm trying to solve. These mastermind groups can be really, really useful. And I guess the problem is not everyone is lucky enough to have access to that. Or I'm quite lucky living in London, I suppose, and you interact with these people, but not everyone can. And so I guess, the thing that really feels exciting about Uppercent, it being a community, is that we can actually sort of almost recreate this mastermind group where people can actually start meeting other people who are successful in lots of different industries. And so my hope would be that eventually our courses cover everything, right? That they're literally everything. I mean, there's obviously a lot of research, I know, coming from education industry, that actually learning music can have massive benefits to your brain and your ability to process maths and things like that and stuff. So I would say, I would encourage people to do as a wider range of courses as possible. Even if they're thinking, I'd like to learn business, there might be some really interesting things they can learn. And I guess that for every course that we do, my real focus is, okay, say we're doing it with this is far later on along the line, but say, for example, it's a famous musician or something like that, is what could people in every other industry learn from this person? So it's not just musicians who might be interested. I mean, I'm using that as an example. I hope that sort of makes some sense. But yeah, so I guess really trying to create this sort of mastermind group, but also have a wide range of courses. But at the moment, it's primarily sort of focused on kind of e-commerce and high value skills at the moment.
Yeah, I'd say as well as high value skills that are new, like the fast paced change of the world that we live in right now is crazy. If you look at, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, social media was still a relatively new industry, and now tons of people work on a daily basis in social media. And in traditional education, maybe up to higher education, there's probably no mention of social media. When you get into higher education, maybe university, there is, but you can't learn it in that sense, just out of a textbook from someone that is a lecturer that's never delved into social media. They're talking very general about a subject like that. You want to learn it from someone who has single-handedly learned about a specific social media platform and all of the, kind of the secrets of that platform that they can share practically with you. That to me is what real education is. So along the same lines as Mark, you want to learn from people that have been there and done it. And the other factor of the Uppercent, as Mark was discussing, is trying to create this community of aspirational thinkers that are in similar fields, trying to achieve similar things. So yeah, focus on high value skills, a focus on new skills that aren't taught in traditional education, and a focus on skills that are being taught, which aren't being taught in schools, but can be taught by people that are leading their fields.
Yeah, nice. That makes a lot of sense. And like you say, there's a lot of cutting edge subjects that aren't really taught in schools right now. So that's definitely a gap that needs to be filled, I guess. In regards to like the courses, like how are they going to be broken down? How long are they going to last? What's the duration? Is it going to be one long video? Is it going to be multiple modules? Like how does that work?
It'll vary hugely depending on the subject matter. Some of the skills, obviously, I mean, that seems like a generic answer, but I think as I said, the core thing is it really cool? As I say, as a lifelong learner, I'm going to be, looking at the kind of courses thinking like, is this something that's really, really exciting to learn? What new skills? And then the next question is, how best to deliver that, right? We're at an incredibly interesting, stage. As I say, like I've seen blockchain change since 2012. I've seen it's incredible. But I have to tell you that the e-learning and education technology has just come on leaps and bounds, and there's some incredible stuff, especially with the advent of AI now, and also with like processing, the internet speeds. The stuff we can do is absolutely incredible. So the big thing that we are constantly talking about is what would be the most effective way of teaching this. So in some cases, it might be quite a long course. It could be a few hours of video, or it could be days worth of video. But it could also, and as I say, there are certain courses that we're working on right now that really lend themselves to some form of I'm not going to go to all the technology just yet, but I'm super excited by it, is all I can tell you. But there's some really, really cool stuff where someone recently said to me, who's a CTO of another tech company that I've known for a while, was like, Mark, there's this new thing you can use. And I was like, what? So at the moment, it's this constantly evolving course. But I guess to answer your question, probably it could be anything from a few hours to days worth of video. But I think the real goal here is to make the courses in such a way that they make the most of the technology that exists today. So Jake was talking about universities, right? So traditional university, having gone to university, you're sitting in a large lecture theatre, and and eventually they started using PowerPoints and things like that. That might be a really great way of learning certain things, but actually there are some really, really powerful learning aids, that are being developed and worked on. And I have a fascination in neuroscience and and psychology as well. Those have been two massive areas. So a lot of the education that I've been involved in is not just teaching people things; it's unblocking learning. Right? You've got a group of people all learning the same thing. Why is it that some people get it and some people don't? And that to me is the bit that becomes really fascinating. So there's various learning styles, as you would have heard of. Some people are visual learners, some people are auditory learners, some people kinesthetic. But then there's some research to say that actually learning in the opposite style that you normally learn in is really useful. So I think there's a lot that we are thinking about behind the scenes, and really this is like my chance, but also the whole team's chance to really geek out on educational psychology, unblocking learning, all of this stuff, to actually make something that's really, really groundbreaking. And again, I mean, how lucky are we to have a community as well? Not to go back to the community, but like how lucky are we to have a community of people who have a vested interest or want to actually kind of help and make these suggestions. And one of the benefits of being a startup now is we're agile. We can do this. We can actually make these changes and put this stuff in. I think a lot of larger companies find it hard to make big changes. I feel sorry for them, because this is this is probably the most exciting time in education since it began. This is where we're going to see a complete overhaul of the entire education industry, and I think it's going to start with products like this, basically.
Nice. Anything to add, Jake?
No, I think that was good.
Yeah, no, it was very comprehensive.
Very good ending.
You sometimes get a bit excited about it. I have to tell you, I'm trying to keep myself down a bit. But it genuinely is so freaking exciting right now. I'm buzzing by how cool this is. And I'm so glad we have an opportunity to kind of do this.
Yeah, definitely. And something else that you mentioned there about the durations basically filling the time that's necessary. I think it's great to have a course, but if you're sort of fluffing it out just to reach certain durations, it's not ideal. Me, if I was trying to learn, I want the information to be as concise and
Yeah.
condensed as possible, right? Because obviously time's a valuable commodity in today's society. Um, so I want to switch up and talk a little bit about the Uppercent membership. What is that, and why is it required? Why do people need to be a member of Uppercent?
Great question. And I also think that this is the right time to ask it because we've already discussed a little bit. I mean, Mark had a really good run earlier about how, you know, having that group of people around you that are inspiring you is a great thing and can, propel you to new places that you haven't been before, new heights, new progressions. And that's really what being an Uppercent member is about. It's about surrounding yourself with those people that you might not have access to in your everyday life, but you can virtually through Uppercent, because simply just learning skills on their own isn't enough. You need to be surrounded by the right people that are motivating you and are inspiring you and pushing you along. And that's why we want to create this kind of community of members that are aspirational thinkers, all helping each other across their journeys. So I think that's the core reason why. And I'd also like to turn on the fact that learning skills to me isn't enough. You need to have the right mindset and you need to have the right tools in place. You need to build the right routine. There's endless different things that can help you take more value from a course, and more importantly, be able to install the new skills you're learning in the better way, right? So that's what we want to do for Uppercent members as well. It's not just, everyone get in a room who's an Uppercent member and just talk between yourselves. We want to build out utilities, utilities that can help someone and aid them with their learning, utilities that can inspire people, utilities that can provide more value than just, you finished this course, well done, move on to the next one. What can you do? So we want to build out utilities, and the best way to do that is to build them out for members. And the last point I've mentioned here, so at the moment you can just apply to be a member, but in the future there's going to be different tiers of membership. There's going to be different levels, right? So you might start as a standard member, but you can work your way up through the levels, and each level could give you access to different things and move you into a different group. And I really do feel like there's this whole membership ecosystem that can support the ecosystem we're trying to build in a very solid way, and it can provide so much more value to the users of the platform. So yeah, I'd leave it there. I'm trying to not say too much because we are working on this, but it enables us, in short, direct to your question. There's members because we want to create a community of aspirational people with the right support circles. There's membership because we want to provide utility to people outside of just being able to buy and sell access passes to courses. And as I just mentioned, there's membership because we want to make this kind of a tiered system in future, for many different reasons we'll get into another day.
Yeah, sure. And, I think just referring back to what Mark said earlier about, Thomas Edison and Henry Ford and the mastermind group, I'm pretty sure I read this in a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And
That's the one.
Yeah, it completely makes sense being able to not just interact with people and seeing things from different perspectives, but also unlocking that door to collaboration, where if you find like-minded individuals, you could potentially take the things what you've learned from the course and then apply them in the real world, right?
I mean, in all honesty, wouldn't it be incredible if there were two people, or three people across the world who took courses, got really inspired, went, I've got a great idea, and they met through the Uppercent community and created an incredible company, or the next Google or something like that. I mean, like, how freaking awesome would that be?
Yeah. So is I guess the overall sort of aims of Uppercent is not just to provide the educational quality, but the foundation for people to apply that and sort of take it to the next level and move forward in that sense.
Yeah, spot on. We want to build that ecosystem that supports people's learning. I mean, course completion rates are as low as 5% in some circumstances in relation to online courses.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. Sorry to interrupt you, Jake, but that was something that Jake let me know, and I looked into this. You're absolutely right. There's these online courses, people, they're not completing them. and they're spending quite a lot of money on this. And I think that's, I mean, look, I suppose it's for the creator, it doesn't matter, right? They make the money. But I think for us, we'd actually like to have courses that people actually complete. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jake, on that, but that was something that really got me.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. Good explanation as well.
Yeah, I mean, what good is accumulating knowledge if you're not going to apply it, right? So that pretty much sums up the first part of the interview. Please feel free to check the second interview linked in the description. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.